Good afternoon again, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels, and we're about to go to that horrible world known as the JRC. But before we do the usual disclaimers, and me having a moment. I dealt with a special level of stupid hatred and bigotry today. I didn't even go outside my door except to check my mail. So I decided to you know this thing, right? Treat yourself. So my cheapo version of that is I got me some Amy's Pad Thai. Amy's have been pretty good for frozen curry for an organic brand, so see how it goes, right? Alright, now before we get into it, we're going to have, once again, Dr. Matthew Israel sit there and try to say that New York Special Education Department was discredited. Really? No, they weren't, Doctor. You did not in any way, shape, or form discredit any of the individuals who were a part of that investigation. In fact, their findings were taken very seriously in a court of law while you were thrown out on your petard. But we'll get on to that in a moment. First, disclaimers. In the description box, folks, you're going to find a link to the article that the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center doesn't want you to read. It's written by NeuroClastic, a small non-for-profit started by autistics for autistics, wherein they interviewed and surveyed over 900 ABA professionals regards to the JRC's so-called behavior modification program. Matter of fact, the JRC doesn't want you to read this article so much they've threatened NeuroClastic with a defamation lawsuit if they did not remove it from the website. Well, folks, NeuroClastic has refused, so you know the drill. Please read that article and share it on all your social media. Also included in there is NeuroClastic's public statement regards to the defamation lawsuit threat, as well as a link to their GoFundMe. We are crowdfunding, folks, in case the JRC actually sees through with their threat. Also included in there, the Ozarks' first article in regards to the Agape boarding school / now known as Stone for Help boarding school situation. A so-called Christian-themed boarding school based out of Stockton, Missouri that takes in so-called troubled male teens that has impending over 21 civil lawsuits, claims, and allegations leveled against it, all which have been substantiated by the Missouri Department of Social Services and include the following: sodomy, rape, sexual assault, child abuse, psychological and emotional abuse, child trafficking, starvation, and that's just for starters. You have one former staff member arrested by the FBI, another a doctor who's still on the premises with full access to the boys upon multiple substantiated claims of sodomy, rape, and sexual assault. You've got our Attorney General, too busy chasing after drag queens and trying to defund public libraries and failing spectacularly to actually do his job and protect the kids of this state. And I don't even know what to tell you about our governor. We just need him out. So, folks, please share that article on all your social media. We have the other pertinent links to the Stop the Shocks campaign, including Autistic Hoya's massive archive on the subject, Jennifer Masamba's behavioral sheet of shockable offenses, a clip out of the 7-hour ordeal undergone by Andre McCollins back in 2002, and the ever-present self-explanatory Change.org Shut the Judge Rotenberg Center Down petition. When we discuss the JRC, you're going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips of surveillance footage of people with disabilities being tortured and abused. If you got young children present, please use your headphones, all right? Now, this channel is marked not for children for a reason. We use profanity and we speak on dark subjects. If your child is 16 and younger and they are watching this, very obviously parental supervision is very much advised, all right? Alright, trigger warning. We are about to once again descend into the mad ravings of the lunatic mind known as Dr. Matthew Israel. You're going to hear gaslighting, victim blaming, pseudoscience, and lies. Enough word salad to make you want to vomit. All coming from a man with a massive ego and even larger God complex. So folks, prepare yourself for the special brand of stupid we are about to endure. Okay, the Inset Review team found a litany of abuses involving the most painful of punishments used by the JRC. The Inset Review team has been completely discredited by their obvious bias and lack of qualifications. minute, doctor. Is it you who gets to decide who's qualified and who's not? Because that's what I'm getting here. Mr. Overmassive Ego sitting there telling us that they weren't qualified. They didn't have the qualifications and they're obvious bias. You mean the bias that means that we shouldn't be tortured for how we were born? You mean the bias that believes that punishment should not be used as one of the primary focuses on your insane program? You mean the fact that they don't feel like food should be used as leverage in your programs? That bias? Because if that's true, doctor, you are basically telling me that the entirety of everyone who works in this field, literally everyone, is not qualified, and we are all biased, and therefore we are all discredited. Because you say so. Dear God, you really are making AH look like an amateur in the whole... Let me level with you, doctor. You do not get to decide who's qualified and who's not based on whether or not they agree with you. This is not how these types of visits work. Let me state it for you again for the billionth time. When these visits happen, you are not the authority. We are. When we come out and start doing unannounced visits, that is because there has been not just complaints, doctor, but numerous complaints, and an abnormal amount of complaints, backed up with actual medical evidence to back it up. We're not coming over there for our health. We're not going over there because we're Tuesday, it's bored, and we decided that we were going to go pick on poor freaking Matthew Israel. Our caseloads are astronomical, especially those out in New York. Those New York counterparts of ours, if you think ours in Missouri are sky high, yeah. If we have to take the time out of our caseloads to investigate a program or a school or a home, rest assured, the reason for concern has been raised. If it comes to the point that we have to come out there when you don't want us to, with caseloads that large, then that means there has been an abnormally large amount of reports of complaints against you. Most places get large amount of complaints, it's true. There's a Karen born every minute. The complaints that would hit someone like ours desk would be those that have been substantiated with hard evidence to back it up. When you get that many reports that we are coming out to do unannounced visits, you don't get to sit there and tell us we're biased and that we don't have the qualifications necessary to judge you. Because guess what? State says we do. If you are an out-of-state program in particular, and we have to leave our state and our caseloads to take the time and the money to come out and do unannounced visits, rest assured, you do not get to say whether we are biased or qualified or not. Because, again, the state says we are. We are coming out there because you particularly pander to the poor communities of our state, and you take on our kids. Our state empowers us to investigate if those students, or consumers, as the case may be for the adults or the elderly, if they feel that they are in danger. Whether you think we're qualified to judge you or not doesn't matter, because the state has determined that we are. They are not going to send some brand new person who's never done anything like this before out there just to target you, doctor. We do not have the time, money, resources. You get what I'm saying here? You do not get to determine who is qualified and who is not. The state does. And if the state specifically has designated a particular group of individuals that they handpicked to conduct this investigation, whether you think we're qualified or not, doesn't matter. And if you say that 175 page of word salad in any way discredits anyone from that New York team, you are out of your mind, sir. You are kind of the epitome of the inmate that's taken over the asylum. But let's read on here, shall we? First, NSAID assembled a review team without consulting or involving in any way the NSAID regional associates who have been specifically assigned to JRC, whose duties were, inter alia, to review the program. Let me explain something to you, doctor. There is an individual group that you have worked with before that usually handles this. But there is a large number of complaints that have been substantiated by hard evidence. That means that the previous group you've been working with, in our opinion, have not been doing their jobs. So the state will then decide to construct a team together to do unannounced visits because the other team has not made any answer from what we are hearing and seeing. If you have a group that has repeatedly failed to make you aware that there is something really wrong here, do you really think we're going to be working with those people? You ever hear the guy that's your manager's manager? That's that team. That's teams like mine. Okay? We are the next step up, which means if they failed in their duty, that New York felt concerned enough to put together a different team. You see how this doesn't discredit what New York said, right, doctor? I think you actually do. And I think you play stupid and you play this pity card and you act like, but they didn't alert the proper authorities. It's what same crap you said about Greg Miller. He contacted nobody, but he actually did. But let's read on, shall we? The probable reason for this was the fact that INSEAD's regional associate had just evaluated JRC 5 months earlier and found JRC to be in compliance with all INSEAD regulations. And you proved my point. Let me explain it to you. Simple terms. If you have a group like this who's supposed to be overseeing you, right? And they just keep signing off that you're complying with everything. But there is, again, an abnormally large amount of complaints. Not just an abnormally large amount of complaints, but an abnormally large amount of substantiated complaints and claims. You really think we're just going to say, well, the regional association said they're okay, so we're going to let it slide? It's not how this works. The state is answerable to its constituents. Okay? The state is answerable to its constituents. That means if they kept signing off and saying that everything's in INSEAD regulations, while these report after report after report after report keeps coming in, and they get substantiated by hard evidence such as medical documents, that means there's a kink in the hose. Means somebody's not doing their job. That means something fishy is going on. When such a situation like this arises, that's when groups like mine and like the INSEAD group that went out there are formed. Okay? You arguing but they signed off on it is not an argument. Because the people that you're trying to disqualify are those people's bosses. Do you not understand how any of this works? But let's read on. INSEAD made no credible effort to ensure the review team were unbiased concerning aversive interventions, and some review team members later made no secret of their virulent opposition to the use of adversives. Let me explain something to you about New York, doctor. New York has said no to adversives since the late 1990s. They have outlawed, hear me, doctor, outlawed any form of adversives being used in any of their programs throughout the entirety of their state. You continue to try to sit there and say it's not credible because they don't agree that these kids should be punished is not the flex you think it is. You sitting there trying to say that they're not qualified because they don't think a kid should be tortured, starved, and sleep deprived and jumped is not a flex. Why do you think none of this flew with the UN Special Rapporteur on Torture? But let's read more of this nonsense. Such attitudes were pervasive among the INSEAD personnel who supervised or oversaw the review team's efforts. Furthermore, the outside consultants lacked sufficient knowledge or experience to conduct an informed review of the JRC. None of the consultants had direct experience with adversive interventions. None had ever evaluated program use of adversive interventions. None had any prior experience with some of the adversive interventions used at the JRC. This doesn't disqualify them. Are you literally trying your defense, your platform? Let me hear you here. Your case is because in their practices and programs throughout their state that they have outlawed adversives because they do not think that disabled people should be punished, consequented, starved, shocked or jumped by their staff because they don't agree with all of this, and because they do not allow such practices within the programs that they designed, that somehow this discredits them? Are you on crack? Because let me make something very clear for you, doctor. Every other single state in the union has done the same. You want to know why? Because what you're doing is inhumane beyond all reason. What's not to get here? No other state does this, doctor. They left those barbaric practices where they belong, to the past. They've moved on. They've brought in new programs, new ideas, humane treatments that do not require punishment as part of their programs. And I know you want to sit there and say, but they don't work. But they do, doctor. They do. And to sit there and stamp your foot and try and declare that none of those kids that I saw, 25% of my state, thousands of consumers of every age bracket, and you want to tell me that I've never dealt with anybody as severe as the kids in your school? The numbers don't work, doctor. What I'm seeing is a toddler throwing a temper tantrum because nobody agrees with you. We'll finish the rest of this insanity here, but let me make this clear, doctor. You can't sit there and declare us unqualified because we don't agree with your insanity. Most of us have moved on since the institutional days where you got to abuse us to your heart's content. More humane practices and programs that are catered to the individual and not cookie cutter have been used successfully throughout the country. The reason why one program isn't 100% successful 100% of the time is because each individual with a disability is different. There is no one-size-fits-all medical treatment. Anyone with logic, even if you haven't worked the field, can see that. You in particular do not get to declare who is qualified and who is not when it's time for us to get some answers. Nor do you get to stamp your foot and say, but their association said we were in compliance. But there's a list of complaints with ER documents to back them up that are insane, doctor. Which means somebody's dropping the ball. When somebody's dropping the ball, the idea is to not ignore it and allow abuse to go on, but to get to the bottom of it. Again, doctor, you don't get to decide who's qualified and who's not in those groups. You're in trouble. We're the authority. We are there to protect the kids of our state. Whether you think we're qualified or not does not matter. You have not discredited a single individual on that team. They had the qualifications. They were hand-selected by their state to do this. They are the boss's boss. We are the boss's boss when we're out there. Do you not understand? We're going to close on that. We don't get very many views on this channel. The few that we do tend to get removed from time to time. So, folks, please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe, and don't forget to hit the credit. Comments, bleh. I do appreciate your time. And as always, folks, we here at Spilling Tea do hope you have a good one. Bye-bye, everyone.